Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 24. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here on this Monday edition of the podcast. Steelers Nation getting ready for Week 2, the final game of Week 2, Monday night doubleheader. Pittsburgh playing the later game at 8:15 tonight at Acrisure Stadium against the Cleveland Browns. Pittsburgh 0-1, Cleveland 1-0. David, may only be Week 2, but this one feels pretty important to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, it does, for sure. And you look at the historical, happy Monday, by the way. When you look at the historical nature of 0-2 starts, even prior to the 17-game schedule, it's generally not great, obviously, when you start off 0-2. Now, I know there's been some stats thrown out there over the last couple seasons with the new playoff format and all like that, but even so, it still stands that you're putting yourself in a big hole if you go 0-2. I mean, you got, how many teams around the league right now are sit at, let me see here, coming out of yesterday, how many teams are 0-2? You got the Patriots 0-2. First time that's happened since 2001 when some guy named Tom Brady took over.
That was a good stat pull by you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that turned out pretty good for them. The Bengals 0-2. Who saw that coming? Houston 0-2. The Chargers 0-2. I don't know if I saw that one coming. Denver 0-2. Let's see who else out there. Minnesota and Chicago both 0-2, and the Arizona Cardinals 0-2. So the Steelers don't need to be in that group. And look, they've got kind of a bit of a break, if you want to call it that, because here we are thinking the Bengals are going to roll again, and they're 0-2 to start the season, and this obviously is a divisional game with the Browns, and the Bengals are now 0-2 in the division, so this could have residual kind of impact later on in the season here. But look, you got to play them one game at a time. This game's at home. You go on the road for the next couple of weeks here. It would behoove them to find a way to win this game, obviously, Monday night.
That it would, although the Bengals were 0-2 to start last year, but they weren't both divisional losses. The one was the Pittsburgh, of course. They lost to, I forget who they lost to, the Cowboys or the Jets or somebody. I forget who it was. But yeah, if you're Pittsburgh, you don't want to be 0-2, let Cleveland go to 2-0 and be 2-0 in the North. Well, Baltimore's 2-0 with an AFC North win and hand over the Bengals yesterday. So not going to call this must win, but my terrible take today is it means so much, I think, not only for your record, obviously, but your psyche, to 0-1. No one panics. Everyone says it's one game. Week 1's weird. Throw it out the window. But you're 0-2 and you lose one of those games to the Browns. You've lost both games to start your season at home. It's hard not to panic, hard not to feel that. And you're digging yourself a hole to climb out of so early into a season.
Absolutely. Big game. And, there's, the optimism level from where you probably sit right now after seeing what you saw. And then you throw on top of it, look, the 49ers are a very good team. We know that, but the Rams were able to hang with them. And, you kind of look at that, and the Rams are a kind of team that I thought, might be might sort of be battling for potentially a top, the number one draft pick this year. They kind of held their own and was obviously able to score on the 49ers. And you look at that gets you even more frustrated with the inability of the Steelers offense to do anything last week as well too. But we're on to week 2, Alex. We're on to Monday night, and that's where our focus needs to be right now. And obviously, after the game happens, we'll look at it and dissect it and see where they're at.
And let's start with the injury report. Now, usually on our Friday show, we can have a pretty good sense for the final injury report, although it does officially come out until after we're done recording. But because of the Monday night game, team had to practice on Saturday. And so the final report did not come out until the weekend. 2 players ruled out for the Steelers. One we knew, Deontay Johnson, that did not practice all week. He is out. And joining him, unfortunately, is running back Anthony McFarland Jr. with a knee injury that apparently happened at some point in week 1. He also did not practice at all this week, and he is out. On the good news side, Chukwuma Okorafor was a full participant on Saturday. He has exited concussion protocol. He had no game status for tonight, so he will play. Ditto with James Daniels, Pat Frymouth, and a good sign for Larry Ogunjobi, practicing in full on Saturday after not practicing on Friday. No designation for him, and so he will play. George Pickens did show up Saturday limited with a hamstring injury, but no game status on him. So he will play. Must have been really, really minor overall. So highlighting the players not participating: Cam Hayward on IR, obviously. No Deontay Johnson, no Anthony McFarland. And we'll see if this team makes any elevations to the roster in a few hours.
Yeah, and Quadre Olison could be one of those. We're now potentially looking at happening a few hours from now, and obviously we'll wait to see what happens with Fehoko if he gets elevated there. It doesn't feel like that. Kind of listening to kind of what some quotes that Armand Watts had this past week. It feels like he expects to be in uniform after being inactive last week. So I think it's far from guaranteed on Fehoko getting elevated, but we'll definitely see. And then Olison, I think, seems to think that he has a pretty good chance with Anthony McFarland being out this week, although Connor Hayward did supposedly get some repetitions in some way, shape, or form, and obviously go back to the preseason and the carries that they got him. So it's going to be interesting to see over the next course. This will obviously happen after we record this podcast Monday, but see what, if any, elevations there are and how that might impact the inactive list later on tonight. Did we get the transaction the other day of Hayward going on IR and Dez Fitzpatrick being signed off the practice squad? When did that happen?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did. I think we had talked about that, right? Getting the days all kind of running together. Wasn't that last Thursday, that they officially, I want to say, made that move?
Yeah, that sounds correct there. I guess the big question now is what happens. With McFarland out, you're obviously going to have a new kick returner, and you would think that would probably be Gunnar Olszewski, right?
Yeah, I can't think of any other option. I mean, Austin has not really worked kicks in college or in Pittsburgh, so it's almost guaranteed to be Olszewski.
All right. So he, obviously Deontay's going to be down. Do you see Fitzpatrick? With Fitzpatrick being signed to the 53, they're back to at least 6 healthy wide receivers. Fitzpatrick going to be down, or is he going to be up? Is Miles Boykin going to be down? It feels like one of the, in addition to Deontay Johnson, one other wide receiver is going to be inactive tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to call up Fitzpatrick, your first thought is they have a plan for him to play, but Boykin was not on the injury report, and so he should be good. And, Fitzpatrick kind of really made his mark in stadium action in the preseason for his gunner work on the punt coverage team. And I don't think he's going to get the hat over Boykin. So, I mean, it just depends on some of these roster elevations. And I haven't, sat down to probably map it out the way that you have, but Fitzpatrick may still be inactive.
Yeah, I think so as well, too. If he's not, and if Boykin is indeed active, that could mean no helmet for James Pierre.
Right. So, but you probably want to have that extra corner than an extra, wide receiver like a Dez Fitzpatrick. Right. So, I mean, we'll see overall. Yeah, with Fehoko, it's a good question. I mean, we kind of assumed early in the week that he would get elevated, but there is no guarantee of that. They already have 2 nose tackles in Adams and Benton, and they're going to, probably play Benton quite a bit in this one. I just think in a game like this against Cleveland, it's going to run the ball a ton and do so effectively. You probably want a good plugger in the middle, but maybe because they're a bit more of a zone scheme, you need some athleticism to work down the line. Fehoko, in some respect, may not be an ideal fit to defend that.
That's a good point as well, too. And that's going to be part of what we're talking about in previewing this game, too. The way they run that football, and they obviously use different, all the running schemes, though. But they do like to lean on that outside zone. I get so jealous when I see teams that it can effectively run that outside zone, and they certainly can, and they're even better at it, obviously, when Nick Chubb is the one running behind it.
Let's flip over to the Browns, and they will be, or like expected to be, I should say, without their top weapon, the way that Pittsburgh is. Amari Cooper aggravating a groin injury on Saturday's practice. He is officially listed as questionable, but according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, he is unlikely and not expected to play in this game. Browns may give him an extra week to get healthy. And so if Cooper can't go, their top targets become Elijah Moore, who was productive in week 1. The rookie Cedric Tillman, the big-bodied former Michigan man, and Donovan Peoples-Jones, of course, David Njoku, the tight end, and a healthy dose of that run game. So not official on Cooper, but it appears he will not play, which is good because he certainly had his fair share of success against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, a little bit of an equalizer, if you will, right? Especially with the Steelers not having Deontay Johnson. Look, they've obviously got some good receivers over there, and they're probably going to lean heavy on the running game. But a healthy Amari Cooper out there presents some issues. And once again, this is an equalizer of sorts, if you will, if indeed he doesn't dress, and it doesn't sound like he will.
Yeah, I mean, you got two really high-level route runners in Cooper and Johnson not playing in this one. So, as you said, equalizer is probably a really good word for it overall. So what team is better equipped, though, to handle missing their top weapon just based on that 1 week snapshot last week? You would say the Browns, but, we'll just have to wait and see.
And the rest of the injury report for the Browns going into the weekend was Juan Thornhill is questionable with a calf, and Siaki Ika with a foot, defensive tackle, questionable. So going to be interesting to see if either of those two guys dress.
Yeah, neither of them played in week 1. Thornhill, one of the big free agent acquisitions. Ika, one of their top draft picks, I believe their second overall selection in the 3rd round behind Cedric Tillman. So we'll see if those guys can go. Anything else happen over the weekend news-wise that I might be missing right now, Dave?
What do you mean? Steeler-wise or just big picture-wise or what?
I guess Steelers choice, either or. I just want to make sure I'm not missing any sort of transactional news or any major story before we kind of jump into our analysis and preview of this game.
Yeah, I think we got most of it there.
Should note that actually Raiders wide receiver Devontae Adams is being evaluated for a concussion, and so that's something to monitor. I know we're all focused on week 2, but next Sunday night will come around pretty quick. Steelers Raiders on Sunday night in week 3, and Adams may not play because he's concussed, and they did not have Jacoby Myers. He was concussed in week 1. I'm guessing he'll be back for week 3, but no Adams would be obviously very notable for a Raiders team not off to a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. And they looked okay early against the Buffalo Bills, and boy, Buffalo just took Josh Allen. The rumors of Josh Allen's demise were greatly exaggerated. He looked really, really good in that game, and the Raiders, they couldn't run. What Josh Jacobs had negative.
Yeah, we had more yards than Josh Jacobs did.
Yeah. Negative 2 yards in that game there. They couldn't do anything after that first quarter.
All right, Dave, let's jump into our analysis and start previewing this game tonight against the Browns. Again, 8:15 Eastern time at Acrisure Stadium. Cleveland 1-0 off their great 24-3 win over Cincinnati in the opener. Pittsburgh 0-1, losing to the 49ers 30-7 in week number 1. Let's start with this Browns offense. And everyone knows you have to contain, slow down that run game. Easier said than done, especially without Cam Hayward. If you're Terrell Austin, if you're Mike Tomlin, how are you trying to minimize that potent Browns running attack?
Yeah, good question. And once again, they their running game. Look, they lost Conklin at right tackle, but Dawan Jones is going to make his first NFL start. The rest of that line really looks good, and I know you probably saw the Wyatt Teller video from last week, and the way those guys are able to get off the ball and get out into space. And once again, they ran, I think it was 8 or 9 total outside zone plays in that game against the Bengals, and I think 5 or 6 of them Chubb, 6 of them I think Chubb was running in, and they had some nice gains on that. Not so much with their other running back Jerome Ford, but this is a team that runs all the schemes up front.
Mm-hmm.
They do. They get that outside zone going early and get you concerned about that. Then they'll boot off of that. Have the flow going one way and then get Deshaun Watson out in space. But the best way to defend it, is you've got to do some of you got to do some of the principles when it comes to your defensive line. You've got to stay square and in your gap, and almost when we talked years ago with Chris Hoke, about stopping that outside zone there. It's almost got to be a chorus line effect where you go step in step with a dance partner up front there. And because if one guy gets behind in that chorus line and gets turned out, that opens up that crease there, and Nick Chubb is probably going to hit it. So I think first and foremost, you have to be worried about the outside zone and really have to read your keys within that. But on top of it, it's not like they only run outside zone. They'll run inside zone. Sure. They'll run gap and man. I mean, they do all of it well there. But you're just going to have to be on your keys. Everybody, your linebackers have got to be gap sound. You got to flow to the football real well on those outside zones, and you can't let this team get ahead of the chains the way the 49ers did against you on the ground, because that opens up everything else that they want to do. And once again, if they're successful with that outside zone early, you're going to see boots off of that, and they really start using your anxiety against you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you said that really well, David. There was unfortunately no magic bullet to stopping this run game. Many teams have tried before. It really is about being able to flow down the line, not get reached, not get cut off. I think the strong safeties in this game are going to really play an important role. I imagine Pittsburgh's going to load up the box to try to contain and minimize that run game. So a Keanu O'Neal in your base package, maybe some Monte Casey. I don't know how much big nickel we'll see. Maybe a couple snaps. We saw it in week number 1, but I think you get the 8th man in the box, maybe some free unblocked moments for those guys. Can they make plays on Chubb and get him to the ground, or at least be able to spill the run or box it inside or something like that? So just play with good leverage. So I think maybe you get a couple of those unblocked safeties to come down, hopefully make some plays, because you want to attack and you want to maybe penetrate, but you don't want to have them run gap, like you said, and they'll pin those guys down and be able to bounce the run to the outside. So there's a risk reward to trying to be over aggressive in this game.
Right, for sure. And look, I mean, we can sit here and talk about that's what they need to do, but they got to do it, and, we've heard a couple of linebackers and a couple of players talk about they've got to tackle better. And that's something that they ought, because look, you miss one tackle, and we saw that last week against Christian McCaffrey. Chubb is yet another one that can go 30, 40, 60 yards on you. So, and it's imperative to get the Browns in as many second and long situations as you can, because that gets them out of their running game. And specifically, if you get them in 3rd and long, I know if you go back and look at that game against the Bengals, in some situations where Deshaun Watson had to go empty they weren't very good in those situations. So that's a ticket, first down, stopping the run, to potentially leading to 3rd and long situations to get them off the field.
Yeah, that's ideal. Although, I don't know how much of a factor weather was in week 1, because they played in a pretty heavy, rainstorm out there against the Bengals. And it's not going to be those conditions won't exist tonight. And so we'll see how the Browns look, although they won't have Amari Cooper in this one. But yeah, it's a fair point overall. I know that if you look at the box score, the carry share between Chubb and Ford looks pretty close. I think Chubb had maybe 4 more carries than Ford, but most of that for Ford, the backup came in the fourth quarter. I think through the first 3 quarters, Chubb outcarried him like 16-4 or something, pretty large. So Chubb is still that number one guy. He's in the passing game more too. He got 4 passes last week. And so without Kareem Hunt, without kind of more of a truer third down back, you've seen Chubb probably expand his game a little bit.
Yeah, they'll definitely use him in that screen game as well too, and or as a dump off option as well too. So you've got to be concerned with every element of the game when Nick Chubb's out there, because you're right, 4 for 21 receiving in there, and he had 106. What do you have? 127 total yards from scrimmage in that game, and he touched the football 22 times in total. So Mr. Chubb is definitely going to have the Steelers' attention Monday night.
For sure, as he always does. With this passing game, I think you said it well, Dave. They're constrained plays. They're going to make their play action passes, look like their run scheme. So you're going to get, those stretch looks that are going to become boots and play action. They're going to occasionally, pull the guard to get a false key. And so you really have to be disciplined with your eyes and be ready for the play action game.
Yeah. Remember, Njoku's had some pretty decent games against this team as of late, right?
Yeah, what did he have? What did he do last year? I know Cooper went off in that one game. I know Njoku's been a guy on the rise, and he's had a bumpy career. Almost wanted out of Cleveland, stayed. Got paid. I think. What did he do in 2022?
Wasn't it that first game that he really
you're right.
went crazy on?
Yeah, 9 catches, 89 yards, and a touchdown. And even in the finale, 4 catches, 42 yards, and a touchdown. So 2 games. What is that? 13 grabs for $130 and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, that's awfully productive.
Right. So I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things to worry about in here, but it all starts with stopping the run, and then you take your chances from there. And then on top of that, and this was kind of one of my, obviously stopping Chubb is key to this game. One of my other 5 keys in this game, especially when looking at the Browns offensively, is Deshaun Watson will take off with the football, and especially on some of those rollouts, if he doesn't see what he likes, he'll tuck it and run. He did so, I think, 6 times last week against the Bengals that he took off with the football there. And I think dating back to last season, he averaged something around 6 times a game. Trying to pull up stats here. Yeah, 5 times for 45 yards and a touchdown. Watson had in that game against the Bengals, and he even had, I think, a 2-point conversion run late in the game on top of it. So he's still fairly young. He still uses his legs pretty well, and he's not, if you're going to play some man in this situation, you obviously your pass rush has got to be consistent in staying in the rush lanes, and then cornerbacks have got to be cognizant that it's been 3 seconds and my back's turned. Do I need to maybe take a peek and see where he's at?
It's a really good point. You're trying to walk that line between, I know this pass rush can get after Watson. They sacked him 7 times last year. It's TJ Watt against Dawan Jones. That's obviously advantage Watt. It's Alex Highsmith on Jedrick Wills, their left tackle. Highsmith has generally owned Wills over the years. So those guys can get after him, but how do you balance that between wanting to sack him versus rushing smart and, as you said, preserving rush lane integrity? And because, on the first 2 third downs in week 1, Watson tried to take off, and in the red zone, you got to alert the quarterback draw. He ran for a touchdown on a design quarterback power out of empty. So, kind of 10, 15 yard line there and empty, have to alert quarterback draw there. But just in more general terms, in terms of him scrambling and breaking contain or stepping up and taking off, it's hard to play man against that. So it's a really good point, and I don't know how well to walk that line because you need pressure, you need sacks. He's someone that can and probably will be sacked multiple times tonight, but how do you weigh that versus him breaking off a 20-yard run on 3rd and 8?
And look, you go back and you rewatch that game. They had 350 total net yards of offense against the Bengals, and it wasn't the best game for Deshaun Watson throwing the football. Now, weather impacted that. We already talked about. Man, there was a couple of home run balls that you have to wonder if it's sunny, if it's a clear day, and the air's not thick like was the case in Cleveland last week. I mean, you're looking at him throwing for over 300 yards and probably 3 touchdowns in that game. So they were still able to do what they really wanted to do. Now, they weren't great on third downs in that game, and once again, I think that's another a byproduct that you hope to get yourself into, get them into some third and long situations, because they were just 4 of 14 on third downs last week. But once again, they still managed to put 24 points up on the board, 350 total net yards of offense, and yet Deshaun Watson only completed 16 of 29 passes for 154 yards in that game. So it's supposed to be clear tonight, right, Pittsburgh?
Right. Yeah, it's going to be good weather. Yeah, there were a couple of he threw like 3 curls that just died, just were at the receiver's feet. And that's probably some week 1 rust coupled with the weather conditions. I would expect a more consistent and technical version of Watson tonight.
And look, anytime you get an opportunity of him giving you one, you damn sure better take it. And we saw the Steelers be opportunistic last year in that late season game against him. What Levi Wallace had one, and Casey had one,
right.
Didn't he?
He jumped that route, yeah.
Right. So if he gives you one, you damn sure better take it.
I think the other, just one last note for their offense is, how do you defend Elijah Moore? He's kind of their version of Deebo Samuel, acquired from the Jets. I think I mentioned this on Friday, the first snap the Browns had of their season, Moore's in the backfield as a running back and Chubb's at fullback, and Chubb got the carry on that one, but Moore had 2 carries and a couple of catches. He's going to move all around. We talked to Scott Petrak, who said their goal is to use him as with as much versatility as possible. So identifying him, and especially with Cooper being out, they're probably going to lean on a guy like Elijah Moore all the more.
Right. And, obviously Goodwin's got some speed in there and more. I mean, they've got people that are good route runners. And Peoples-Jones didn't have a big game, but we've seen in his short time in the NFL that he can get down the field and make plays as well, too. So, yeah, they're not going to it doesn't sound like they're going to have Amari Cooper, but they've still got personnel that can get it done in the passing game.
No doubt. Let's flip over to the defense. And I think when we talk about this defense, David, it has to start with their front. Jim Schwartz, the new DC, of course, Myles Garrett, but he's not alone. Zadarius Smith, the Texans player whose name I can't pronounce too well, but he's a talented guy. They run true 5-man down fronts. They stunt, they twist, they move Garrett around. If you want to beat this Browns defense, you got to beat that Browns front.
Absolutely. And we saw, I think, 3 or 4 times in that game against the Bengals of them moving Garrett around. Not only does he play both sides, they lined him up over the center. 4 times? I think those were, what did I say? Those were third and long situations. 3 of those. Or 4 of those were third and long situations where he's lined up over the center there, standing up. So I would expect to see more of that. That Euro step basketball crossover step, that's hard to defend. So the best way to prevent Myles Garrett from lining up in the middle there is don't get in those third and long situations. So that's one thing that stuck out with him. And look, he's it doesn't matter which side he rushes from. He's a challenge. So Dan Moore Jr. and Chukwuma Okorafor have definitely got to be on their P's and Q's. And once again, the opportunities, you better be ready to defend him coming up the gut in those situations. Another thing that stuck out to me on some second and long situations is they give you that double barrel look, right? With both those inside linebackers lined up in the A gaps there. Now, I think they did that 3 times in total. I think the first 2 times they dropped those guys back in coverage, but the last time later in the game they not only sit those guys, but they sit Delpit as well too. So they have tendencies down distance wise, and because of the success that they had with those tendencies, I think you're going to see him carry over. Jim Schwartz I don't think he's too concerned about those 1 week tendencies.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a really aggressive attacking demeanor for not just the D-line, but the entire defense. I mean, they want to jump routes. The safeties want to cut crosses. They want to be aggressive. They rally to the football well. I mean, they kind of have this, and I think, it's an old adage, but it's the idea of stop the run on your way to the quarterback. They want to, get upfield. They want to be aggressive, and they want to, create chaos that way. And they're kind of gap shooting more than they are two gapping and just taking on blocks. And they got the skill guys to do it. They beefed up their interior line with Dalvin Tomlinson, and if Ika plays in this game, it's another big body up front that's going to help plug the run, which was a real issue for them last year. But yeah, I think we talk about Garrett and how creatively they're using him. I think generally speaking, he was kind of used more what would be a core four side on early downs, but in those money downs, passing situations, that's when he would go back to his home at right defensive end, which would be against Dan Moore Jr. or, as you said, standing up, playing that off-ball linebacker in the A gap, and they can do a lot of stuff with him. So, just how do you identify, your protections, and how do you adjust and pick up stunts and twists? How do you communicate and pass things off? That's going to be really critical in this game.
Look, you're begging for it if you get in a lot of second and third and long situations in this game. Plain and simple.
But I would say the Bengals last week, their average third down was 3rd and 6, and that was top 10, best third down situation. They were 1 and 7 and 3rd and 5 or closer last week. So it was weird. Like, they didn't have a good day on third down, but even when they were up close, they still couldn't convert.
Right. Burrow was not on his game either. And look, the best combination, to slow guys like Garrett down is be able to run at him.
Sure,
so sure. You go back to last week. Obviously, the Steelers only had nine rushes by the running backs and all, and game situations, circumstances, got you out of that. But even digging deeper into those numbers, I mean, look, they were able to get Darnell Washington on the field for a lot of snaps, over 20 snaps in that game. However, there was I think only 4 instances of 12 personnel with two tight ends on the field, with Washington being one of those that they ran the football on. So even though they ran 9 times, only 4 of them came out of 12 personnel with Washington on the field. We need to come out of this game knowing what your identity is on offense here. We talked a lot about that bully ball, during the off season and all like that. The identity of this offense right now is 3 and out.
Sure.
And that's obviously not a very good identity to have. You have to ball control this. You have to keep their defense off the field. You have to be able to run the football. And part of that, we've got to see Darnell. I think we've got to see a lot more 12 personnel in this game with Freiermuth and Darnell Washington on the field. And you've got to get your big body dude on Darnell on these edge guys and run that way.
With Johnson being out, do you expect them to lean on those heavier, more condensed personnel and packages more in this game?
I mean, I don't think it's going to be like an 80-20 split, but sure. by no means. But
at least their intent, their approach.
Yeah, I would like to think that that's how they're going to come out in this game.
I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, again, game script totally got them out of what their intentions were and any semblance of personality. So of course you can't fall behind. If you want to play to your identity, you can't be down 14-0 so quickly, down 20-0 by, midway through the second quarter. And so that obviously is going to be really important, because the Browns, we know who the Browns are, and the Browns are going to, play to their strength and play to their identity. Can Pittsburgh match that and truly play to their personality? That's going to be really critical. But yeah, I mean, can you run the ball against that tough front? When they go 5 defensive linemen, literal 5 guys with their hand in the dirt, can you stop that? You got to win your one-on-one blocks. And if you can do that, then you get running backs into the second level and create some space. Might be able to bust off a good-sized run, but getting to that first level is going to be critical.
And I think you're going, one of the things to come out of that first game on Browns defensively is they're certainly not afraid to play man, are they? And I think that they're going to be willing to try to test that early on against the Steelers. And, another way to slow down that pass rush when you do pass is get the ball out quick, right? So you've got to have guys like Calvin Austin and George Pickens and really Allen Robinson II win these one-on-one situations in man situations and get off the line quickly, get open. You got to get the ball out of Kenny Pickett's hands as quickly as possible in this game. And obviously staying out of third and long situations, second and long where you're more, have the tendency to hold the football a little bit longer. Not having your best route runner in Deontay Johnson is not great on this. And, I know the Browns have come out and said, well, Calvin Austin's going to have our attention as well, too. And you'd like to think that George Pickens is going to have their attention as well, too. When you get those one-on-one situations with Pickens on the outside, press man, you've got to be able to take your shots down the field on that, either back shoulder or up over the top. Pickens, has got to win, obviously several of those. But I think the real wild card in this one might be Calvin Austin, and even despite who was it, Ward, saying that he's going to have their attention, but. I think for the Steelers to win this game or at least keep this game close, I think Calvin Austin is the one that needs to have a big game here. I think you need to get, and it's something that we screamed all off season, man. You got to get this ball to your playmakers out in space. That should be the theme, along with establishing the run early, is get the ball to these guys. I'm not talking about curls and comebacks and all like that. You've got to get these guys running slants or vertical or what have you, and get the football out to guys like Calvin Austin out in space and let him get an opportunity to deliver a single, a double, a triple explosive play.
Sure. I'm with you every step of the way there, Dave. Yeah, I think Pickens, he's going to get some of those one-on-one looks, especially backside. If you get him as the isolated X receiver, they kind of run some, we can call it Meg, calls where it's man everywhere he goes. They're going to lock the backside in 3-by-1. They're going to zone to the trip side, so you can get Pickens some back shoulder opportunities or some slant. Maybe he breaks a tackle, busts off a big play. I know the answer to this is both, because it's always both. It's always coaching and scheme and players executing. But what is more important for these Steelers receivers to win without Deontay Johnson against those tough top three corners in Ward, in Emerson, and in Newsom? Is it more important for the players to win the route, or is it more important for Matt Canada to scheme it up so these guys have a better chance to get open and win the route?
Well, look, if you just if you're not running switch route combinations and you're running a lot of that same stuff that very independent routes, you're also begging for it against these corners, So, yeah, we've got to see better combinations, quick combinations as well too, and. So, I mean, yeah, they both are very, very important, but the receivers at the core got to get the separation in here as well, too. And that's really where I think Calvin Austin comes into play in this. I think he gives you a better chance of being between guys like Allen Robinson and George Pickens and Calvin Austin. I think Austin gives you the better chance to get that early snap separation.
Yeah, for me, I mean, again, it is obviously both, but I think Canada has to scheme some things up. Maybe you run more 2-by-2 and don't just mirror every single concept in your playbook. But maybe you do, if you go 3-by-1, you do some more stacks and bunches. It'll create some of those free releases so those cornerbacks can't press and jam and reroute and disrupt the timing. I think that's going to be really important. So, and it can't just be, as you said, all independent routes. Everybody's just kind of trying to win their route and beat their man. You're not gonna win that way. So Pittsburgh really has to, I think, put some defenders in conflict and, scheme things up to the point where the Browns might have some miscommunication or guys getting picked or just trying to pass things off, something that'll help create some separation for Pittsburgh's wide receivers.
Rub them off.
Yeah, for sure on that. So any other thoughts here for this defense? The linebackers, we didn't talk about them too much. JOK, he's an athletic sideline dude. Taki's more of the strong side guy. Any other final thoughts on the defense?
Yeah, I want those I want guys in that secondary to have to make tackles.
Yeah, for sure. Although I mean, of course you want them to, but they can tackle. I mean,
Sure.
Denzel Ward was showing a lot of physicality, and they're hopefully get Thornhill back. So those guys, I think it's a really aggressive defense. Can you use that to your advantage? One thing, and this is partially because of the game script. The Bengals in Week 1 were the only team not to run play action once because they got down so much and so early, and so the Browns have not seen play action in the regular season. The only team not to. And so can you try to run that? Of course, if you can get a run game going, it'll kind of help maybe establish that a bit better. But maybe use some play action, double move, try to use that aggressiveness against the Browns.
Yeah, and as part of all this, don't forget that you have Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah, kind of underrated. Like only one catch last week. It was a touchdown. It was a big catch, but yeah, only one catch. How often does Freiermuth go in a game with only one reception? How often does that happen?
Small sample size, but it probably happened. How many times has it happened?
I mean, I imagine it's happened occasionally. But let's use the internet here. That was just the 4th time in his career that he had either 0 or just 1 reception.
Right.
And looks like the other instances occurred during his rookie year, and I think actually against the Browns in the finale last year too. He had 0 catches in that game, although it looks like he played. He didn't get hurt in that one. But anyway, I think Freiermuth is going to be a really important weapon in this game.
Right. I agree.
Final thought here. I think my X factor for this game is Presley Harvin III. I think just overall field position. If you're gonna beat the Browns, it's probably gonna be a close game, and so field position becomes really important overall. And so it's not just him; it's got to be the coverage guys and the gunners and all the the penalties, like the face mask they had last week. But I think Harvin's got to be a guy that can flip the field because you don't want to give the Browns any more advantages to what they probably already have.
I'm going to say Calvin Austin's mine. I think he needs to have a big game. I think he needs to bust. I think. Look, you go back to that college stat. What, nearly once every 4 times he touched the football, he delivered an explosive play. This team already showed it struggled in Week 1 to create explosive plays. They need a good 5 or 6 of them in this game.
Do you expect Austin to primarily play on the outside as he did last week? I know they're going to mix and match, not going to be 100%, but do you think it's going to be basically Austin as your X, Pickens your Z, and Robinson in the slot?
I do, but I know that we talked about this the other day that the media seems to think it'll be, maybe opposite of that Austin will play more in the slot. I mean, nothing says that he can't, but I mean, and I know trying to change out of your game script after Deontay went down might be a little bit tougher last week there, but I mean, I think personally I'm expecting for what we saw in that opener. Even after Deontay left, I expect to see. Now you'll see, I think, Austin in the slot some in this game, but I tend to believe that based what I've seen so far, that after this game, we're going to say that it was more 2-1 or 3-1 with Austin being outside as opposed to the slot.
Okay. That's fair. That makes sense. I think that's probably the best way Pittsburgh can go about it. But yeah, him beating press coverage on the outside is going to be really important overall. So where else to go from here, Dave? Should we make our predictions now? Or are we saving that? How are we handling that here on this Monday?
I guess we'll go ahead and get the predictions done and get to some emails, huh?
All right, I'll go first here with my prediction. And I know we've talked up the Browns a ton, but we generally try to be give the other team credit for where their strengths are. But I think it's a good team. I think on paper, and it is just on paper, we know the AFC North is going to be close and competitive like it essentially always is. But on paper, the Browns, I think, come in with a better offense and the better defense. I think Pittsburgh will have to try to close that gap, that margin on special teams. But when you don't have Cam Hayward, when you allowed, whatever it was, 180 some yards for the 49ers in Week 1, and when you look at this Browns defense, their pass rush, their secondary, the way that they really took it to Cincinnati. Again, I think weather played an impact. Maybe Burrow's cap played an impact as well, but still just an A+ performance. I think Pittsburgh's going to have to really dig deep in this one. And listen, they seem to play well when the chips are down, when they're the underdog. They're not given the credit that they think they deserve or they think they should get or whatever the case is. But end of the day, I just think that Browns run game is just going to be too much. So I got this one Cleveland 24, Pittsburgh 14, and I have a bad gut feeling, and maybe I'm wrong, often I am, but I have a bad gut feeling this one could kind of get ugly, similar to the 49ers game, but I got Cleveland winning by 10, 24-14.
Wow. Okay. And one other key to this game, we talked about, stopping Mr. Chubb. I identified Austin in space, Mount Washington rides. You got to have some Mount Washington rides, right, when you're in Pittsburgh. So, and desist dashing Deshaun. We talked about that, Deshaun with his feet. One of the other keys, and it's an obvious one, rookie watching. Watt versus the rookie day.
Oh, nice. I like it.
Watching. So we're watching the rookie tonight. Look, TJ Watt needs to have a big game in this one. Another 3-game sack, get that ball out 1 or 2 times, game record stuff, kind of stuff that he's done in the past. He needs to have a big game in this. My pick is based totally on situation and trends and forgiveness. All right.
Okay.
Look, there's no reason to think that from what we saw, it's easy to be down on this team coming out of week 1. However, I did have them losing that game to the 49ers. I had them bouncing back against the Browns prior to the season and getting their first win. You look at all the trends. This is a trend pick, more so than a confidence pick. The Steelers obviously 20-0 in their last 20 on Monday Night Football. The bounce back stat related to Tomlin teams coming out of big losses. You got the 1952 stat that we've already talked about, that this would be the first time since 1952 the Steelers have lost back-to-back home games in weeks 1 and 2 of a season. What else is in play here? The Browns in Pittsburgh. I mean, you got so many streaks involved.
They haven't started 2-0 since 1993. The Browns.
Right. So I call this Dave's trend pick of the week here, because my confidence level, I'm just playing the odds and the trends here. I think this is an ugly game. I think this is a low scoring game altogether. I think the Steelers do just enough to hang around in this one. I don't think we'll be. I think we'll still have concerns potentially about the offense coming out of this altogether. But I'm going to say the Steelers win this one in ugly fashion, 19-17.
Ooh, the 19. That is a lot of field goals or a missed extra point or safety. How are we getting 19?
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever the case is.
However you deem that needed. Hopefully this ends up. I envision this as a late game winning drive that that you get a field goal to take the lead here. So once again, not very confident in this pick at all. This is a trend pick. This is I picked the Steelers to beat the Browns before the season started in week 2 after losing to the 49ers. This is what this pick is for me. And boy, do they need to win as we hit at the top of the show.
If there was an on-field reason that's giving you some level of confidence, I know you're making this just primarily based off of the historical trends of it all, but if there's an on-field reason that you had to cite for why you're picking Pittsburgh, what would it be?
I just Tomlin's ability to get this team to bounce back and focus, and the importance of it and all. Yeah,
because I mean, again, I know it's AFC North. It's always close. You can kind of throw some of these things out the window, but what on-field matchup, do they have the advantage over Cleveland in right now? It's hard for me to find that. And I know it's just week 1, and that can be, fool's errand, and it's a long scope of a season that we'll have to see how it plays out. But I just don't see where Pittsburgh has a bunch of winning matchups on paper right now.
Look, I think it's big that they might not have Amari Cooper on that other side.
Sure.
And that allows them maybe to even focus a little bit more on stopping the run.
Right. But of course, Pittsburgh, it kind of gets washed because Pittsburgh doesn't have Deontay Johnson. So to me, that kind of ends up being more of a wash than a Pittsburgh advantage.
All right.
But we'll see. I mean, again, these things can be close. And you're right. I mean, Pittsburgh at home, all the history says that, Pittsburgh's going to be able to bounce back. And let's hope that they do. All right, Dave, let's get to a couple of reader emails and close out today's show.
All right. Let me sort them out real quick here. We have... who do we have? Oh no, I don't think we have any in here from the other day, since the other day here. I think everybody's sitting on their hands right now here. So, from what I'm looking at, no new emails in here since the Friday show here. Everybody's on pins and needles waiting to send them after the game, I'm sure.
All right. So what's our plan? Will we do a show for Tuesday, I'm guessing, or how do you want to handle? Okay.
Yeah, I guess we can, because look, we'll have it might be a later show though, right? Because Mike Tomlin speaks
tomorrow. Yeah, I assume. I have not seen the official schedule, but I assume he's going to speak tomorrow.
All right, so and that'll give us maybe a little bit time to hit some of the tape and all like that. Yeah. So folks can expect a little bit later afternoon Tuesday show as we wrap up the Browns game and cover anything of importance that Mike Tomlin said during his Tuesday press conference. Then sound good?
Yeah, just real quick, any week 2 thoughts overall for the NFL? Where are you at in the AFC North? You see the Bengals. Do you think the Bengals are in serious trouble? Do you think they can bounce back the way that they did last year and the Ravens 2-0 to start their season?
I don't know. Joe Burrow's complaining about that calf already, right? Mm-hmm. Now I think that doesn't the schedule kind of play a little bit into their favor. Who do the Bengals have coming up here?
I think the Rams, I want to say.
And that's probably not a gimme coming out of the way the Rams played.
Yeah, it's Rams next Monday night.
Okay, and then they get Tennessee, I think, after that there. Baltimore certainly is doing what they need to do. Lamar Jackson with a couple of really nice throws, and Zay looks like Baltimore may have finally found out a way to draft a wide receiver, right? He looks like he might be the real deal. They were able to get a lot of things done that they wanted to do on both sides of the football. The Ravens did. So all of this said and done, a win on Monday night, no matter how you get it, the Steelers will enter week 3 as the second place team in the AFC North.
Yeah, and I don't care how they get it. I don't care if it's the worst looking quote unquote win, ever. Just get the win. I mean, that's all that matters here.
Right. Deep passing seems to be struggling overall in the NFL. Continuing on, that seems to be a little bit of a trend right now.
Yeah, I hadn't looked at it too much. I know there's kind of been, you've seen a lot more too high, to defend the deep ball in the Mahomes of the world, which kind of takes away some of that and forces teams to dink and dunk. But some big pass plays, some downfield pass plays would not hurt my feelings tonight.
All right. They need some explosive plays. If we're not talking about 5 or 6 explosive plays by the Steelers Tuesday morning, I'm not so sure we're talking about a Steelers win. So anyway. All right, we'll get back after it on Tuesday afternoon then there. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do, want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, upper right navigational bar. Thank you for spending this last, hour with us. Enjoy the game. We'll obviously be wrapping it up into the early Tuesday morning. And as we mentioned, going to be back and talking about it on another episode of the podcast late Tuesday afternoon. So as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.